Hey everyone, it's Gracie, and today I'll be doing my class facilitation on a changing communication environment and the credible communicator, which are both chapters from our two readings from McCombs and Pretkonis and Aronson, if I said that right. So first, we're going to draw from a changing communication environment and talk about the evolution of the media landscape. So we know that news media has changed dramatically from its traditional era with materials such as newspapers being the primary source of news for the public, and then moving in a transition period to where entertainment comes into the picture more with news media and the genres begin to blend. And now we are in an almost fully digital media age with seemingly endless options for news media resources that are mostly digital. So in this chapter, the authors talk a lot about how much the news media landscape has changed over time, and they stress the importance that the news media landscape is still evolving and changing now and will continue to in the future. So within the media consumption patterns of the public, most of the society can be categorized into news avoiders or news junkies. And McCombs et al. Actually notes that only about 10 to 15% of the American public can be categorized as news junkies, leaving about 85 to 90% of our public being news avoiders. So traditional news media have been assisted by the web and social media, which has revived the news media landscape, but also has given us a lot more options for where we can get our news media from rather than just relying on a few select broadcast channels in the newspaper. So media convergence is what this is called, where entertainment and news media have kind of blended, which has increased with modernization. And within these changes, the media's ability to set the public agenda is even more powerful, since it's being distributed in so many different ways and seemingly endless possibilities, and it's always available. So within the credible communicator, there are two different categories that communicators can be placed in that allow the public to trust them, and they can be perceived as credible with expertise and trustworthiness. So expertise is where perceived knowledge and qualifications are within a specific domain of the communicator. So this looks like professional credentials or a resume of experience or notable recognition within their field. Credible communicators also have trustworthiness with their audience. So this is where people perceive the communicator as being someone who is honest, transparent about their motives and their intentions, is consistent within their messaging, and has very few conflicts of interest within their messaging. So the researchers argue that someone who says something can be just as important as what is being said, meaning that the person presenting an idea may mean more to how the idea is perceived than the idea itself, if that makes sense. So to evaluate source credibility, there are a few questions that the authors of this chapter have provided us with to help us examine credibility within sources that we are paying attention to. So we can ask if the expert is clearly identified, if they have credentials or background, if this communicator is a genuine expert, or if they are just a celebrity with a large name with no expertise. Is there a consensus among the experts that we're paying attention to? Can they cite the evidence that they are presenting? And are they trustworthy or unbiased in their messaging? The challenge with modern media consumption really is rooted in trust. And the authors of Chapter 12, The Credible Communicator, note that trust is the foundational component to credibility within a resource. They say that without trust, communication does not only become difficult, but it is closer to impossible. So we need trust not only for credibility, but just for communication in general. So for some application for what we've discussed so far, with initial exposure, I kind of set up a scenario here where you can put yourself in a framework of seeing how you could evaluate credibility as well as your resources that you're gathering from. So think about maybe you're at a gathering with friends and they're all talking about a specific current event that you have no knowledge of. You've never heard of this event at all before. So when you go home, you decide to Google the current event and read a few online articles that all kind of have different information about what's going on. After that, you decide that you still don't know enough, so you go on Facebook to try and find more information on this event, and you see that some people that you're friends with have actually shared their own personal opinions and pretty negative articles about this specific event. So then you turn on the TV, and this event is actually being covered on live news television. So you decide to tune in just to see if you can gather any more details or information about this event. So lastly, after these 3 steps of gathering information about what's going on, you begin to develop your own personal opinion based off of all of the information that you've been given. So within your 3 steps of research, there are varying levels of credibility that you have absorbed information from. For example, the news report about the event on TV is likely going to be a lot more credible information than what your friend posted about it on Facebook. And this is because it's coming from reporters, from anchors who have researched this event, who have gone out into the field and gathered information themselves, versus maybe your friend who has just read a few articles about it and decides to make a post when they're not very involved. So this scenario is just a way to demonstrate a real life example of measuring credibility within your sources, and also provides you with examples of how credibility can vary based off of different forms of news media. So some key takeaways from the 2 readings. The first one is going to be that media influence always persists. So despite being in a fragmented society, media still shapes what we think about, even if it shapes what we think as well. So second, credibility is key. Trustworthiness is very important within a communicator and their audience and understanding what the expert is talking about. So trustworthiness and expertise are crucial filters that we can use for processing the information that we're absorbing from news media. And for some critical thinking, the questions that I discussed earlier on the last slide are a way that we can think critically about the information that we're absorbing from different news media resources. And just in general, media consumers need to be more discerning now than they have been in the past in order to navigate all of the misinformation that we see day in and day out through scrolling social media or watching television or reading news articles. So for my research question, and you can see more details about the potential research project in the handout, but I feel like this question really blends the 2 readings together when discussing the changing communication landscape and credibility with trustworthiness. And it blends those topics into one overall question. And it asks, how do source credibility and media platform type interact together to influence public relevance and perceived importance of social issues in a fragmented communication environment? So in my research or potential research project in the handout, I discuss how different levels of trust and credibility can vary within an audience based off of which news media platform the audience is getting the information from. So this could look like someone reading a report in a newspaper and trusting it way more than reading a report about it on Facebook, or someone maybe seeing an Instagram post about a current event and not believing it, but then they see a news report on live television about the same event and they trust that report much more. So it just weighs the options of how different sources and platforms can interact with how important we think an issue may be, or how much we trust the reporting done on that issue. So that is all for me today. Thank you.